evening and welcome to the Waterloo City Council Finance Committee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mrs. Jewin?
Here. Motion
To approve the agenda and the minutes of February 1st, 2021 is proposed.
Second.
discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are approved. Did someone take travel requests?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mrs. Klein.
the first travel request is 1 lieutenant and 8 sergeants, class meeting, Law Enforcement Executive Development Association Supervisor Liability Training. The destination is Waterloo, Iowa. The dates are February 1st through the 28th of 2021 in an amount not to exceed $3,150. And the second one is 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 8 officers. It's for a class meeting, de-escalation strategies for best outcomes. The destination is Waterloo, Iowa. The dates are February 8th through the 10th of 2021 in an amount not to exceed $15,000.
Second.
Thank you. Before we vote on this, let me state, and I think everyone knows, when I see a travel request that has already started prior to the meeting, I talk to the department head. In this case, I talked to the chief and talked to our finance director. My understanding is that in both cases, it's because of some complications in filling the class and getting enough people to fill the class so the class can be performed. I'm going to talk to our chief and our financial to see if there's some way maybe that we could put this as a preliminary or a tentative, but we will work on that. And again, I have had those discussions. So with that, we have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, Madam Chair, both of these, what they're requesting does not match with the, and we've had this discussion before, doesn't match with the requests as attached. In number 1, it says, I believe, 1 lieutenant and 8 sergeants. But then in the listing the people, it only has 1 lieutenant and 7 sergeants, not the 8. And that needs to be corrected. And so I would hope that whoever's online from the police would acknowledge that and agree to make that amendment to that. And in the second one, it says 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 8 officers, when in fact on the travel requests, it lists 2 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, and 9 officers. And that also needs to be amended to show the correct number as submitted on the request that we're to approve. And the other additional question to that second one is that it lists each one of those per person as $577. And if you extend that out, because it's only lists $15,000 as registration, but for even the maximum number that you have there, that only comes to about $7,000. So my question is, what is that additional $8,000 listed for under registration? So those corrections, I believe, those corrections I believe need to be made for us to properly approve these. I know that City Clerk Felkley in the past, when we had brought this up before, had stated we needed to start this in the Finance Committee before we bring it up in the City Council regular session. So that's what I'm doing to get this corrected now, so the City Council when the whole council can approve the correct numbers for both of these travel requests.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. I'm going to turn this over to the chief, but before I do, I'm wondering if part of what Mr. Morrissey mentioned as far as the variation in the number of participants has to do with what you were talking to me about as far as sometimes being difficult to know exactly who signed up for a class before it starts. So with that, turn it over to you, Chief Fitzgerald. Can you answer Mr. Morrissey's questions? Is the chief here? He was here earlier. No?
Sharon, I can probably answer that if he's
Can you
unavailable.
answer it, Major Leibold?
Yes, I can. Yeah, that is, we are trying to get all our supervisors through this de-escalation training. So in order to try to get caught up to the council, sometimes we're gonna have to put in requests that might be over what we can get to go depending on people's schedules. But yeah, we're trying to get everybody through that one. On the second one, he's talking about the money difference. We're hosting that class, so we are paying for the whole class. We have a grant and we're gonna use forfeiture funds. So we're paying for the whole class and we're sending that number of officers to that class. That's why the money doesn't match up on the registrations.
So we will be reimbursed that difference then?
We have a $7,000 or $8,000 grant through PSN. It was supposed to be used last year and COVID got it extended. So we have a PSN grant specifically directed to de-escalation training. The original goal was to send people to it, but we found it was cheaper to actually bring them here. We get more employees and more bang for our buck. This is actually an instructor course, so they'll be able to teach anybody in the county. And we did open it up to outside agencies. How many are coming, I do not know.
So we have to approve the 15,000 even though we will be getting a large portion of that back, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I believe on the actual billing, it should say the two separate line items.
Okay.
Well, it does, Major, but I think it's the cost per person that I hope is what's wrong. So your cost is more like at least $1,000 per person.
Well, I'm guessing the cost per person is what's being billed to the outside agencies that are coming, that we're hosting. That's the total cost. So there's more than 15 people going, or whatever we have here, 10, 11. There's more than 11 people going. We just have 11 of our officers.
We need to discuss that this may not have been presented properly. I need approval for the full amount you're going to pay. Regardless.
That's the 15,000.
Okay, that's good. And so I don't know how many people the 15,000 covers, in other words.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
My mistake. I didn't count all these. I guess I'll do that in the future.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr.
I
Morris.
just like to make a motion that we postpone this until these corrections are made and it brought to the finance committee as corrected, please. Could we, I'd like to make that motion to postpone this until such time as the corrections are made so that we're approving something that we know what we're approving, who it all involves under a travel request. That's my motion.
I would like to second that.
Okay. Before we vote on that, can I ask, Michelle, should the amount not to exceed, should that amount be what we have to pay or what our net expense is?
No, it should be the total amount I'm writing a check for. That's what I want that to be. And the cost should be what it's really costing us per person. And if we are bringing an instructor here and we're providing a class to others, I might have, had I realized that, I might have presented it to you a little differently. But at this point, I think if we know we have to pay 15,000, we can approve that. It would be nice to know how many Waterloo people we're providing instruction to and how many from other agencies.
Do you suggest then that we postpone this at this time?
I think what I would suggest is that you approve it subject to bringing an amended one, because I think the amount is correct. And I think maybe at the next meeting, we can get it corrected. We'll just amend it for the right number of people, because I'm thinking that might be where our issue is.
Mr.
So,
Morrissey, are you
Michelle-
willing- are you
Michelle,
willing-
what you're suggesting is
Mr.
that we,
Moore- I was in the middle of asking you a question, Mr. Morrissey. Would you be willing to change your amendment to reflect what Ms. Widener was suggesting?
as long as it would include the correct number of personnel that are attending these, which the title does not give the correct numbers that are listed as attending for these travel requests.
Are
I
you
would not
suggesting that-
want to vote. I would not want to vote to approve something that is not correct, in other words. And this is not correct as submitted.
And that would be for number 1 and number 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Morrissey, would you be all right with amending it if we approve it with the correct number of people based on the names on the travel request, which I'm just assuming that's correct today. And then we can amend it for any other things we need to amend it for later.
I would be agreeable to that, Michelle.
Okay.
Is the
so-
second agreeable to that?
Yes.
Okay, so we have an amendment then to correct this, subject to changing the participants, with asking that an amended version of this come back to us in the future,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. That's
Okay, so all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, just as a clarification,
Yeah,
we're going to be moving this forward to the full council with that same language. Is that correct? Kelly Felkley, City Clerk Felkley, is that correct?
yeah.
That's what I'm understanding.
Okay, so,
Okay, so we are going to, on the full motion then, as amended, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Mr. Morrissey, help me with that when we get to the full council. I think we got it, but
Well, I hope
If I'm
that
wrong.
City Clerk Felkley has that language there. So.
Well,
I'll be leaning on the chair of the finance committee to read that amendment, as with all other amendments during. council.
thanks, Kelly. Yeah,
so
okay.
I think it's for, the first one is for maybe 1 lieutenant and 7 sergeants. And
Yes.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. The second one I think is 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 9 officers.
No.
Yeah.
No, I still can't count. What?
Okay,
That's what you
so
said.
it's 9 officers, correct, not 8.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
Yes, correct, Michelle, yes.
okay, okay, good. You were getting me scared there for a minute, Mr. Morrissey. Thank you.
Okay, we got through that. And again, I will be talking to Chief Fitzgerald and Ms. Wiedner on how we can handle these kind of situations in the future. So, who is willing and has got the
I will,
option
Sharon.
and strength to do the pre-authorizations? We have 28 of them.
I'll be fine with it, Sharon.
Okay, Mr. Morrissey.
Oh, okay. So these are pre-authorizations asking for approval for those expending over $2,500. And the first one is Central Garage with the amount estimated shipping handling, $6,137.30 plus $250 shipping and handling for one 10K hydraulic generator system for fire engine number 311. Before I go any further, Sharon, it looks like we may go beyond 5:30, and I hope that that's no problem with the mayor.
I think we will be fine.
Okay, number 4 is Central Garage, amount and estimated shipping and handling, $2,687 for one TXV 92 pump for snow control truck number 190901. Next is Fire Department, with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $31,323.98 plus $400 shipping and handling for one complete set of Holmatro rescue equipment. The next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $9,380 for construction and design services with Modus Engineering to repair fire damage at Riverfront Stadium. Next, again, is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $5,991 for shirts for participants in the Optimus baseball and softball programs. Next is leisure services with amount and estimated shipping and handling $5,970.25 plus $268 shipping and handling for hats for participants in Optimus baseball and softball programs. Next is leisure services with amount and estimated shipping and handling $40,829.25 for one John Deere 2750 precision cut triplex greens mower. Next is leisure services with amount and estimated shipping and handling $2,899.20 for the balls for 2021 Optimus baseball and softball programs. Next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling not to exceed $20,000 for 33 trees to be supplied and planted in downtown Waterloo. Next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $9,898.50 for emergency repair to ice system to keep the ice system operational. And that's at Young Arena. And next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $7,105 for TV advertisement package and commercial production for Sportsplex advertising to increase membership and increase events held. Next is leisure services with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $24,500 for purchase of trees as part of Plant Waterloo program generously funded by Young Family Foundation. Next is the mayor's office with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $4,406 for the fiscal year 21 Metro Coalition dues. Next is the MIS department for $3,854.50 for the Falcon Endpoint Antivirus licensing by CrowdStrike. Next is MIS department again for $43,776 for the Dell networking switches for the core infrastructure. Next is planning and zoning with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $7,600 for the writing of legal descriptions for the acquisition of the TechWorks lot. Next is the police department for $16,643.95 for purchase of office furniture and cabinets for the police department third floor remodeling project. Next is sanitation department with the amount and estimated shipping and handling of $34,130 plus $2,900 shipping and handling for 250 medium, 250 large, and 200 small yard waste carts. Next is sewer department for $10,294.40 for one replacement JWC grinder core for SN:20658. Next is traffic operations with the amount and estimated shipping and handling $9,357.17 for 70 Hall of Fame LED light fixtures. Next is traffic operations for amount and estimated shipping and handling of $13,248 plus $200 shipping and handling for 720 50-pound bags of reflective beads. Traffic operations again for a total of $22,764 for 12 Miller Burn street light poles with 8-foot arm and hardware. Again, traffic operations for shipping and handling of $3,020 and $50 shipping and handling for 4 36-inch and 14 54-inch Astro sign brackets. Next is traffic operations again for shipping and handling of $6,875 for one 250-gallon tote of white high build and yellow high build traffic paint. Traffic operations again for estimated shipping and handling of $22,316.25 plus $200 shipping and handling for 4 275-gallon totes of white fast dry and 7 275-gallon totes of yellow fast dry traffic paint. Traffic operations again for amount and estimated shipping and handling of $3,318.85 plus $150 shipping and handling for rolls of various clear film sheeting and application tape. Next is traffic operations once again for estimated shipping and handling $12,000 plus $2,956 shipping and handling for amending the prior authorization of $12,900 for 2 demo state-of-the-art smart poles because the shipping costs were higher than expected. And finally is traffic operations with the amount of estimated shipping and handling $3,623 plus $125 shipping and handling for 1 Valmont 40-foot black street light pole with LED fixture.
You're muted.
Second.
Congratulations, Mr. Morrissey, from getting through that all. Good job.
Well, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
hate to prolong this, but number 5, I would ask if Chief Treelor could explain. Number 6, I just had a question about any idea of what the dollar amount of damage caused from that fire was. Number 12, I would ask that it be explained. That's with Leisure Services. Number 18, the planning one. And I just note that it looks as though that was submitted as after the fact amount rather than pre, because it had to be done by February 5th, which we're 10 days past. And then finally, number 26, traffic, I just wanted to see, it sounds as though part of that is a pilot project. And I just wanted to have them speak to it being a pilot project. And I know that's a lot, Madam Chair.
Hey, for number 5, is Chief Treelor there?
Yes, I am. Pat Treeler, Fire Chief. What was the question in relation to?
It was just Chief Treeler. I was just wondering, could you explain what that's all about, please?
I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda right in front of me. What's the item, Mr. Morrison?
It's the complete set of Homatro rescue equipment, what that is, so the public knows.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about damage from a fire. I'm a little confused. Yeah, so we have a new rescue truck that's ordered. And so you think of those tools as the jaws of life. These are made by Homatro. We're replacing the outdated and worn tools that are on our brush truck, that on our rescue truck currently. We will be able to use some of the older tools, but these are a complete set of cutters, spreaders, ram, all the types of things that you think of when needed in a rescue situation.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're welcome.
Mr. Hudding, are you there? Mr. Hudding? Paul, I see you're on.
Trying to unmute.
Okay.
I am now
Take
unmuted.
number 6 and number 12, please.
Okay, number 6 is the design services for the fire damage at Riverfront Stadium. And we're going to bid on that. I'm not sure of the estimate, Mr. Morrissey. I'm gonna have to look at that. I took a quick look and didn't find that, but it's substantial, in excess of $100,000. But
Okay.
What was the next question?
Number 12 on the repair to the ice system.
Okay. Chair Jewin and I had a discussion about this.
Yes.
Prior to my submitting it. Basically, the ice system was malfunctioning and the compressor quit working. So we did have to, on an emergency basis, call someone in to make the diagnostics and the repairs.
And Mr. Hudding did talk to me on that in advance, Mr. Moore.
Okay.
Okay. Noel, number 18, please. Mr. Anderson.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. So we sent out, as you may recall, the City of Waterloo City Council has approved acquiring the TechWorks lots and the exchange agreement. So we need to get those legally described to meet state code provisions. Clausen Engineering did submit this. They said they could have it done by February 5th. There's no timeline to have it done by that date. So they'll get it done as we move ahead. We just didn't get it on the agenda before that date.
And then Mr. Bennett, would you take number 26?
Yes, Randy Bennett, Public Works Division Manager. What this actually is we're going to be trying.
Hello?
Oh, are you still able to hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. What this actually is we're going to be trying some different paint that visiting with some other communities, they've had luck for it lasting, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So that's what we're looking at doing in comparison to the paint that we have been using, where some areas we're lucky to get it to last year. So just trying to extend the life of some of the areas for which we have to paint.
And Mr. Bennett, you had it talked about it being a pilot project. Is there a plan that this would become more of a norm rather than just a pilot?
Yes, it will. Yep. If it works like what we're thinking it's going to, yes, that's the goal.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer all of your questions, Mr. Morrissey?
It sure do.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the pre-authorization. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would someone take budget line items and other committee business?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms.
the
Klein.
budget line items to be amended are, first is to approve the project budget for the 2021 to 2024 lead hazard control grant federal funds that were allocated to the City of Waterloo Community Development Department in the amount of $3,384,678 for residential rehabilitation, rental rehabilitation, training and administration, and et cetera, as submitted by Community Development. Number 32 is approve the project budget amendment for the Tri-County Task Force to budget for additional revenue received this fiscal year in the amount of $40,000 for activities of the Tri-County Task Force as submitted by the Police Department. Number 33 is to approve the project budget for the Sportsplex Hotel Motel Marketing Project, funded with $6,250 in discretionary hotel motel tax funds awarded in January of 2021. 34 is to approve the budget amendment to budget for trees to be sold in the Plant Waterloo Tree Program, increasing sales proceeds and tree purchases by $4,500. 35 is to approve the project budget for the Meth Hotspots Fiscal Year 21 project, funded with federal funds awarded through the Governor's Office of Drug Control Policy in the amount of $20,000. $15,000 of these funds will be used by the Waterloo Police Department and $5,000 by other agencies as submitted by the Police Department. And finally, 36 is to approve the budget amendment to use cash on hand in the infrastructure project to pay for development of new library website in the amount of $25,800 as submitted by the library business office manager. And I'll move right on to other committee business. 37 is a refund request in the amount of $22.53 for yard waste recycling curbside fees billed in error for property located at 2116 Cardinal Drive. 38 is a refund request in the amount of $36 for yard waste recycling curbside fees billed in error for property located at 1042 Colby Road. And 39 is a refund request in the amount of $91.71 for garbage collection fees charged in error on a property located at 1626 Forest Avenue.
Madam Chair, I second both the budget line items to be amended and the other committee business.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Under bills payment, as per bill payments dated February 8th, in the amount of $1,514,131.01, and the one for February the 15th, 2021, in the amount of $4,338,887.92. I move to receive, place on file, and forward to the full council.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to
Opposed?
adjourn. Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
I shouldn't have.
Oh, okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 And that was to adjourn, right? No,
No,
that
no.
was just the bills payment. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Woo.
Mr. Amos,
Here.
Mr. Morrissey,
Here.
Mrs. Klein,
Here.
Mr. Foyce,
Here.
Mr. Greider,
Here.
and Mrs. Jewin.
Here.
All right, thank you. We have a full council meeting. Let's please join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. The pledge this evening will be led by Council Member Ward 5, Ray Foyce.
Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America.
and to the republic which stands
One
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice
for all.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion approving the agenda as amended with the following amendments. The first amendment is to 1A12 and adding to the language at the end of that proposed resolution, the following language: and receive and file a 2-year maintenance bond. Add that to the end. Then under travel requests, I would like to make these amendments, that under number 1, it should say for 1 lieutenant and 9 sergeants, and B1A would be 1 lieutenant and 9 sergeants, and B1B would be 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 8 officers. And I should note that our financial director is going to be reviewing both of those and come back with confirmation. So approve those and the minutes of February 1st regular session as proposed.
Second.
second.
All right, the motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, council. It is now time for oral presentations, your opportunity to talk about non-agenda related items. And I know we have a number of people for some related agenda items, but this is non-agenda related items. So Kelly, do we have anyone to speak to non-agenda related items?
Not tonight.
Right. Is there anyone that's in Zoom land that would like to speak on non-agenda related items? Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bozen?
thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to make a couple of comments. The first one would have to do with the street department, and I would like to thank them for their work and their dedication and their snow removal in this past couple of weeks since our last council meeting. They've worked long hours. I mean, they really did a great job, and I commend each and every one of them, from the people out there plowing the streets to the mechanics that are working back there, keeping all that equipment running for them. And the second thing I wanted to talk about, and I've addressed it with Mr. Bennett, and it has to do with Republic Recycling. The problem that we've run into in the past when we privatize is customer service. And a perfect example is 2 weeks ago on a Friday, they just didn't pick up our entire neighborhood or anybody close to our neighborhood. They didn't notify the in any way, shape, or form that they weren't picking it up. They notify our public works director like close to 5 o'clock at night so they could put something out on our Facebook page. But it's happened more often than not. I mean, I'll guarantee you, I've had mine missed 4 or 5 times at least since they started the program. And when I talk about not having customer service, is you don't have a local number you can call when Republic doesn't pick up or you have a problem with them. You call a call center, and the last time I called a call center, it was in Georgia, and the gentleman says we'll get a truck right out and service your neighborhood, before the end of the day today, and that just means they're not coming, because historically, and the 4 or 5 times that they've missed this neighborhood, they just didn't come. So I just want to formally express I'm just really discouraged with the level of service we're getting out of Republic at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Randy, have you had any conversation with Republic about Mr. Bosen's situation?
Randy Bennett, Public Works Division Manager. Yes, I have, because he's not the only one that unfortunately voiced his concern, especially with the late notice on the last one, because unfortunately we weren't able to really get a good press release out. Unfortunately, it was just through our Facebook page because of the late portion of it. And I have met with Matt Pivot, and it is something that we are working on, and hopefully we can get better communication and try to get it addressed on their part.
Thank you. Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. On February 1st, 2 weeks ago, our last city council meeting, the council approved on a 5-2 vote the purchase of the woods, 1.3 acres of Waterloo, inner Waterloo forest that is the character of the Fairfield, Normandy, Virginia Walker, and Cedar Bend Streets neighborhood. One of the important, significant, and attractive characteristics for those that live in that area. Granted, it's been and is privately owned. For the city of Waterloo to target this neighborhood for destruction of one of its multi-generational characteristics seems totally counter to the wish to create a positive message for Waterloo. Ignoring the demands of a petition signed by 91 people to not buy or develop this character is, to me, incredible. Since this February 1st vote, one of the residential properties has even placed a for sale sign in their front yard of their home. Ask yourself, council, if we as a council did our due diligence on our cities buying this property. Several points need to be made, and I'm going to make those. First of all, this 1.3 acres of timber, if it was to be cut down, it has been estimated that it will cost a minimum of $25,000. At least one of the residents in the neighborhood has offered in the past to buy that property, but it was rejected. That person would have kept the woods. Third, the eastern portion of this 1.3 acres and just to the east, which is also city-owned land, has been a dump site in the distant past. Also, the low line issue and it being a water area is within the woods, which poses an issue. And next, there's only one developer for one lot, and that's it. Number 6, why was this developer offered land in September of October of 2020? And if you look at the October 19th work session on YouTube, you'll see that. When that wasn't even city-owned property at that time. Yet given the belief that there was property out there that they were going to be able to get into. And why did the council get denied an executive session to discuss city acquisition of this land? And the one party interested in that one lot of this proposed cul-de-sac was in the running for the city-owned lot at 1644 Logan. And again, I state this issue had been discussed at work sessions on September 14th and 19th. But what's being overlooked, I believe, is so important for the council to know. The following acres of land that are vacant are all on the north side. First, that lot right next to 1644 Logan Avenue is city-owned and buildable and vacant, and especially sound for a 700 to 900 square foot new house. Secondly, 2 lots down from that vacant lot is another vacant lot. Third, there are 25 acres of city-owned land at WCF&N and Dodge Streets. Next, there are about 8 acres off of Cottonwood Lane, which intersects West Donald, and that's city-owned. Next, there are city-owned 19 acres around the 3400 block of East 4th. Next, there are 60 acres of city-owned vacant land on the west side of Tibbetts Park. Next, there are 32 city-owned acres between Burton and Longfellow. Next, there are 22 city-owned acres on the south side of Eastdale and Mildred. Next, there are 10 acres at the north end of North Barkley. And finally, we'll have roughly 4 to 5 acres at the old St. Mary's site when that's demoed. And if you have any questions about what I've just said, just go to Blackhawk County Mapping and check it out. And do we as a council remember the discussions that we had parts of the city parks that were being looked at for development? Those neighborhoods stood up and said that they did not want developments taking place in those areas. But this is even different than that. This is where the city went out over the objections of 100% of the neighbors and bought a parcel of land and then are going to develop it. And they did that, letting a potential buyer know in advance of the city even purchasing that property that it would be available. Okay, would you like what happened to this neighborhood happen in your neighborhood? I would hope not. The destruction of the character of your neighborhood is something that that's why you move into those neighborhoods. I don't think anybody would. And I, quite frankly, am looking to somebody, one of you 5 that voted to approve this, to make a motion to reconsider this. And I look to you 5 right now. Are there any of you 5 who will make a motion to reconsider? Any of the 5?
No, there's not.
Okay. My second thing, Mr. Mayor, is that I again bring to your and the council and the public's attention the longstanding and urgent need for the city to purchase land for the right-of-way to enter and exit the businesses to the north of Broadway at Grandview Streets and Clark Street. There are several businesses back in that area that get blocked from entering or exiting when trains block that exit or the entrance. What happens in medical emergencies? Allowing this to continue disregards the health and safety to those businesses and the people employed in those businesses, or even consumers visiting those businesses that have been there for decades. Without an exit or an entrance, emergency vehicles, personnel, and response is futile. We do care about the health and safety of all who work, live, visit, and travel within our city, don't we? This situation needs to be rectified. The city needs to expend the money to get this rectified. In looking at maps, there is a route that can be made. It's going to take some money to purchase some property, but it is there. And again, it's going to require some taxpayer dollars. But I myself just mapped out a route, and that is if you're going west on Broadway, you turn right onto Grandview, cross the railroad tracks, you're down into these businesses. When you get across the tracks, you turn right on Clark Street. Then you go to the end of Clark Street, take another right, go down that road until it butts up to the railroad right of way. The city buys sufficient land at that point along the westernmost part of the Three Stooges LLC property down to the diagonal that goes southeast to West Parker Street. That allows an entrance and an exit for all people, and it's something for the sake of the health and safety of anybody that is visiting, working in that area, that they don't have to worry about that, and we're not going to have somebody dying from a medical emergency. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
All right, thank you, Mr. Morrissey. Mrs. Klein.
First off, thank you to my colleague Dave Boson for the gentle reminder that to remember John Sherbin, who passed away. John was a friend of the city of Waterloo. He was what was affectionately called a member of the backbench boys. He was a guy that loved where he lived and wanted to see it do better. And I admired him very much for his work with Waterloo. And my second thing, of course, is this. I'd like to go back to city chambers. I think we can do it safely. I think things are on a roll. Everyone's starting to get their shots. And I think it's time to open up. Our library's opening up. And I think we can stay 6 feet apart or better. And I think people miss being able to come and speak directly to us. And that's all I'll say on that matter.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Klein. Thank you so much. And thank you for the reminder as well about John. You know, this last couple of weeks have been very tough. John and others within our community have been hit pretty hard. So I want to thank you for reiterating Mr. Bose's comment. So council, any other comments?
Motion to close the public comments, receive comments, and place on file.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition of bills payment to 1A1, 2 of them, one for February 8th, 2021 in the amount of $1,514,131.01, and one for February 15th, 2021 in the amount of $4,338,887.92.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes, at this point in time, I'd like to remove certain items from the consent agenda for separate explanation, discussion. Those are as follows. First of all, consent agenda item 1A, number 3. And next one would be 1A, number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 15.
All right. All right. Thank you. Mr. Bosen.
And to tag on to Mr. Morrissey, I'd like to remove 1A16, please, for consideration.
All right. Madam Clerk, roll call vote on all of the other items.
Mr. Bosen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
And Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Morrissey, 1A3.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the Iowa Certified Local Government 2020 Annual Report and authorize the mayor and planning staff to execute said document.
Second.
Motion is made with the second. Mr. Morrissey, your question.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in reading through that document, one of the things that troubled me was that there's no mention at all in there of our Dunsmore house, the city-owned Dunsmore house. as being an individual historically designated property. Is that not a historic property? And then my second thing is, I noted when it comes down to the budget, it's zero. So I have a definite issue with there not being any kind of budget for the historic preservation of our city of Waterloo. And that needs to change, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other comments?
Well, could I get an answer to that question of why Dunsmore House was never mentioned, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Anderson, Dunsmore House.
Joel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. So the CLG program is something that the city of Waterloo can take advantage of to get access to special funding, state and federal agencies. So it's an annual report of what the Historic Commission for the city of Waterloo is working on to the state. Obviously, if looking through the report, you can see that there's specific questions in there about action items that the commission did and worked on. Obviously, we're aware of working on potential rehabilitation project for the Dunsmore House. We're still exploring that, so we didn't have a whole lot of details to include in the report. We can definitely go back and look through the report being submitted to the state to try and see which category it would fit into and add a paragraph or two in there.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote on item 1A13.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Ms. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Voice,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like
yeah.
to make a motion adopting a resolution approving completion of project and recommendation of acceptance of work for work performed by Parking Inc. of Des Moines, Iowa in the amount of $207,966 in conjunction with the Waterloo Parking Access and Control System project.
Second.
And
The motion has been made with the second. Mr. Morrissey, your question?
Is that Noel? Yeah, could Noel explain what this is all about, what that money bought?
Mr. Anderson?
Joel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director, and we worked with IT and the CFO for kind of setting all this up. This is basically the new ARM system and card system for the parking ramp. You'll see that later on in the agenda, there is a deduction because of the way that we set up the workstation and the software and with some of our existing abilities. But this is basically to repair that ARM system and the card reader that had not been working. This is the same group that did the one out at the airport. Keith Caspary had noted that they had been working very well out there and had not had any problems. So we were glad to move ahead with this company and get this done.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Voice,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos.
Yes. All
Mr.
right.
Mayor,
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving completion of project and acceptance of work for work performed by Don Gardner Construction Company of Waterloo, Iowa in the amount of $263,760 in conjunction with replacement of the east and west mechanical roofs at Young Arena.
All right. Can I get a second? All right. The motion's been made with the second. Mr. Morrissey?
Again, I am just asking that I don't know if it's Travis or Paul, just explain what this is all about so the public knows exactly what that $263,000 plus change was all about.
All right, Paul, I think you're on. Can you explain what the replacement of the roof at the Young Arena was all about for citizens?
Yes, Paul Heading, Leisure Services Director. This was for replacing the flat portions of the roof at Young Arena on both sides. Basically, they were original roof from when the building was first constructed, I believe in 1994, and they were just beyond repair and needed to be completely replaced. So in a nutshell, that's what this project was for.
Thank you.
And other questions about the replacement of a roof at Young Arena? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Boyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving completion of project and recommendation of acceptance of work for work performed by Kilker Excavating Incorporated of Marion, Iowa, in the amount of $644,768.50 in conjunction with the Cedar Valley Crossing subdivision, and receive and file a 2-year maintenance bond.
Second. All right. The motion has been made with the second. Mr. Morrissey?
And the same thing is, I would ask that this be explained so that the public knows what $644,000 was expended on.
Damon Knudsen, city engineer. This is a new subdivision that was built by Kelker. This is not a city expense. This is a private subdivision that has been completed. The city is required under state code to accept these things as long as they are built to city standards. That's what this is. But there is no cost to the city. This was all private investment.
Right.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, so Mr. Knudsen, so the $600 and nearly $45,000 is not coming out of taxpayer pockets.
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk?
Boyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
and Mrs. Klein.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
number 9, I'd like to make a motion approving final quantity summary for a net decrease of $1,922 in conjunction with the fiscal year 2020 Cedar River Bladder Dam repairs contract number 996, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second. The motion has been made with the second. Mr. Morrissey?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the reason why I wanted this set aside was wanted to know what exactly was the repair, where on the bladder was that repair, and what is the durability or longevity to that repair.
Mr. Knudsen, can you tell us what the repairs were?
Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. The repairs were the connection between the steel piping that runs through the dam and the flexible connection from that steel piping to the actual bladders themselves. That's where the leak had occurred. We also replaced some straps that help retain the stainless steel plates that go over the dam that help protect it from trees and other debris floating down the river. But, this dam has been in place for 10, 11 years. We are looking over the course of the next couple of years to probably be doing something similar to these repairs along the rest of the dam, just to keep it moving forward, keep it in working order.
So, Mr. Knudsen, are you talking about a total replacement in the near future?
No, we're talking about a total replacement of parts. And the best way you could think about it is between your engine and your radiator, you have some hose out there. You have some hose in between those. That's all we replaced was the hose between the piping inside the dam and the inflatable bags that sit on top of the dam. We did not replace any of the airbags. We did not replace any of the piping. We just replaced the flexible hose that was connecting the two, along with some straps that help hold the dam in place.
And did Brennan give any idea or estimate as to the longevity and how long these repairs should last?
We have a 2-year maintenance bond on them, so anything in short of that, they'll be back to repair it. As far as the actual repairs, this is the best way I can explain it is that the manufacturer of the dam has changed how they make these connections from the time we built our dam to the time that Waverly installed theirs a couple of years later. So we obviously know there's going to be some issues in the future, but it's going to be one of those things. I can't give you a number that it's going to last 4 years, 6 years, or anything like that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions about repairing the bladder dam? Madam Clerk?
Voice,
Yes.
Mr. Kreider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein.
Yes.
All right. Thank
Mr. Mayor.
you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution setting a date of public hearing as March 1st, 2021 to approve the request by the city of Waterloo to rezone approximately 17.50 acres from A1 agricultural district and M1 light business district to CP planned commercial district and BP business park district located at 700 Falls Avenue and instruct city clerk to publish said notice.
Second.
All right. That motion has been made with the second. Mr. Morrissey?
Again, Mr. Mayor, I just would like to have explained exactly what this is all about. It appears that 700 Falls Avenue is way down there where the old lumber storage area was, unless I'm mistaken. I'm trying to figure out where 700 Falls Avenue is.
No. Can you talk about the rezoning and where it's at?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. So essentially the city is working on the potential development of these sites. The east side of Blackhawk Creek here is the former Wiseman site, or the former log site as many know it. And there's a portion on the west side of the creek there that is a former detention area. Because of the improvements, and Jamie could add to this if you have questions, but because of the improvements to University Avenue's design, the stormwater detention area was no longer needed because of the stormwater improvements we made throughout that corridor. You may recall we took out the full bridge and put in a tunnel for the trail system through there, so we were able to lower the road, therefore making both of these sites a little bit more at level with the road grade, and so they could have access to the Wiseman site on the east side of the creek again for potential development and of that site and direct access. So eventually we could take out the Falls Avenue Bridge and save the city from some ongoing infrastructure costs there. The west side of the creek, we could have a right in, right out, definitely for access off of University. Otherwise, access may be off of Blackhawk Street. But essentially, we're requesting to move ahead with the rezoning of these. Currently, the east side is zoned straight industrial. The west side is zoned agricultural. So we're setting them up for potential development. The CP is a planned commercial district on the west side. So that would allow for commercial uses. The BP on the east side of the creek then would allow for commercial and light industrial type uses. Both of them being planned districts, therefore the council will come back and look at any proposed development there and have to approve it. Notices sent to property owners and all that, so that they're aware of what could be built there. So we thought that was the best process to move ahead with marketing of these sites and also future development.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Kreider,
Yes.
Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yep.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
and Mr. Foyce.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bozen?
I'd like to adopt a resolution setting the date of public hearing as March 1st, 2021 for the approval of a development agreement with LG Companies LLC for the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located near 1010 Fletcher Avenue in the amount of $5,000 and $25,000 in infill incentives for the construction of 2 new twin homes, and instruct the city clerk to publish said notice.
Second.
Motion has been made with second. Mr. Bozen?
Thank you. I've been in discussions with Mr. Anderson about this development agreement, and he knows how I feel about the sale of the land of the golf course and then refunding the sale back to the developer. He was going to get back to me on that. But the one thing that I wanted to bring forward before this development agreement comes before council in 2 weeks is I'm the council liaison on the Leisure Services Commission. And one of the things that we did discuss and we asked to have put in that development agreement, and we just want to reiterate that, is the fact that to not allow parking or that the tenants or the people that buy this property aren't allowed to park in the Burns Park golf course parking lot. We've had issues with that in the past years ago when those properties were occupied. The Leisure Service Commission, Leisure Service had to deal with those parking issues all the time. And Noel did mention that they were going to include that in the development agreement to not allow parking when they do have events and things going on in those houses. And we just want to make sure as a commission that that's included in the agreement that comes forth on the 1st.
All right, thank you, sir. Noah, you got your orders?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Clerk?
Mrs. Jewin? Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Boyce?
Yes.
And Mr. Greider?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I want to thank Mr. Marty Freshwater, Jeffrey Thompson, Brandon Schoberg, Casey Gardner, and Dan Levi. The first couple of those to the HVAC Mechanical Board for License and Appeals appointments. And then the last 3 are reappointments, 2 new reappointments and a new appointment to the General Contractors Board of Licensing Examiners and Appeals. So thank you all for your service and willing to volunteer. All right, could we have someone take number 2, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request by, or a motion to receive and file approved publication on notice of public hearing for the request by L&BB LLC for a site plan amendment to the R-3, R-P Planned Multiple Residence District to allow for the development of 6 residential lots for single-family homes on a site previously approved for 2 duplexes, an increase in the number of approved residential units from 4 to 6 located southeast of 2950 Southland Drive.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the hearing is open. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments on file?
We do have one comment on file. It is attached to this agenda item. I can also read it if you want me to.
Yeah, Lisa acknowledges it for
Sure.
ordinance.
Sure, it's from Twin Pines Condo Association. It states, we are in receipt of a letter dated February 4th, 2021 regarding a request by L&BB LLC, and as it concerns Southland Park development in Waterloo, Iowa. We, the association, do not have availability to attend the meeting via Zoom scheduled on Monday, February 15th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Most of us are not home from work. We realize that development will occur southeast of 2950 Southland Drive, and that our concern with the water drainage persists whether condos or single-family units are built there. Waterloo City Council have pictures on file of the amounts of water that collect in this area. In spite of drainage basins and the assistance of young city engineer, we fail to see how roofs and driveways will absorb or repel the water so that it doesn't back up into our household drainage. Please advise. Sincerely, Twin Pines Condo Association.
Okay. So we'll keep that hearing open, and afterwards we'll have Jamie or Noel address those comments. All right, anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Michael Meany. I represent the Beckman family as a real estate agent.
Can you give us a address to file?
3510 Kimball Avenue, Waterloo, Iowa.
Thank you. Your comments, sir.
I would just point out that this property has been under development for a number of years, previously to the condominium association to the south and to the east. A preliminary plot plan of 57 residential lots were previously approved as a preliminary plat that was not followed through. The Beckman family subsequently secured this property and own this property and have gone through great lengths and expense to elevate the property, remove the trees, level it out. And now we're at the point where before we spend any more money on this property to create single family home lots, we need to have approval to move forward before we put in the retention pond. Retention pond is obviously, as you all know, it's something new or newer to the development requirements. And this retention pond, when they talk about driveways and roofs, is supposed to, has been engineered to handle the amount of water that would be replaced by those roofs and driveways. Matter of fact, in the end, the retention would more than make up for the roofs and driveways. So theoretically, there will be less runoff into that 40-foot wide right-of-way drainage area than there currently is today. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments and the recommendation of approval of the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission.
Second.
A motion has been made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance amending ordinance number 5079 as amended, City of Waterloo zoning ordinance by amending the official zoning map referred to in section 10-4-4 to approve a request by L&BB LLC for a site plan amendment to the R3 RP Planned Multiple Residence District to allow for the development of 6 residential lots for single-family homes on a site previously approved for 2 duplexes, an increase in the number of approved residential lots from 4 to 6 located southeast of 2950 Southland Drive.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. Jamie or Noel, in addition to what was mentioned during the public hearing, any comments about the letter we received, or did he pretty much, Mr. Meany pretty much nail it?
Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. Yes, I have talked to the folks out there on Twin Pines last summer about it and explained to them what was going to be going on. The developer is absolutely correct that they are going to be installing a detention basin to take care of the extra runoff that's going to be coming off the site and letting it out slowly to the city's storm sewer system. We haven't seen that yet, but that's part of the requirement for the site plan and the subdivision. So we'll review that as it comes in, but otherwise, this is standard procedure.
All right. Council questions? Madam Clerk, roll call vote.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
and Mrs. Jewin.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. So this is, Jamie, this is part of the process. So the sooner we can get this through, the quicker they can get the detention methods back to council. Or no? Jamie, no?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. According to what Mr. Meany said, they're waiting to finalize their engineering efforts for this approval. It would move faster if it was all approved tonight.
And then it comes back before us? No?
I'm trying to remember if it has been platted yet or not, Jamie. It could come back to the council in the form of a plat. Otherwise, it would go through engineering staff review.
Mr. Mayor,
I don't, this is Jamie Knudsen, city engineer. I don't recall if this has been platted or not. So we have to take a look at it.
All right. Mr. Morrissey?
I'm just wondering, have we had any blowback from the people that live out there at all? I don't hear anybody tonight, but has there been any blowback on any future development out there at all that would affect this?
This is the only, the submitted letter, I believe, is the only word that we've received officially.
And the concern was proper detention. All right.
Have the neighbors out there been notified of this, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Coakley?
No, I'm the one that asked.
Oh, Miss Klein. I'm sorry.
That's my ward. I know that whole neighborhood is very worried about water. They did come before the council, I think it was a year or a year and a half ago, about water runoff. And since we are Zooming and it's awkward for a lot of people and they couldn't be here tonight, but you know, the ground is frozen solid and we still have things to look into. I just would like to give this neighborhood a chance to weigh in. With all of the complications, I think they deserve this chance. I hate to see us turn that off for them.
All right. All right, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
No.
Mrs. Klein,
No,
Mr. Foyce,
No.
Mr. Greider,
No.
Mrs. Jewin,
No.
and Mr. Bozen.
No.
All right, thank you, Council. We'll bring that back in a couple of weeks and see if there's any change. Could someone take number 3, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Amos.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of public hearing, and that is for fiscal year 2021 sanitary sewer gate well repairs, phase 1, contract number 951.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this particular item regarding gate well repairs for sanitary sewer? Going a second time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, et cetera, and authorizing to proceed.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. Council, question,
It's 7
conversation?
minutes. I think it started at 5.
You're on mute, Mayor.
He muted me. Any other questions from council about Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
yes,
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
and Mr. Amos.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids and refer to the city engineer for review.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, Madam Clerk.
Right, our estimate was $3,300,000. Our first bidder was Woodruff Construction of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their base bid amount was $3,207,061. Alternate 1, $112,264. Alternate 2, $111,551. Alternate 3, $99,830. And alternate 4, $56,594. Our next bidder is WRH Incorporated of Amana, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their base bid amount is $3,835,000. Alternate 1, $140,000. Alternate 2, $140,000. Alternate 3, $115,000. And alternate 4, $15,000. That's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Number 4, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Amos.
like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of public hearing, and that is for a 10-year agreement with body in-car cameras, taser, and digital evidence management system with Axon Enterprise Incorporated.
Second.
Motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk, are there any objections on file?
There's no objections on file, but we do have some registered speakers.
All right, could you facilitate that?
Sure. Our first speaker is Latanya Graves.
All right, Mrs.
Good
Gray.
evening. Good evening. I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, the new body cameras will tell the story truly from beginning to end, because too many times we've heard it said that the cameras malfunctioned or an officer forgot to activate their camera. And if these new cameras will help eliminate the possibility of human error, then I feel it's a good thing. They can also be used as a tool that will help hold officers accountable and rebuild trust within our community and reduce citizen complaints. Because, you know, as a community leader, we receive complaints all the time. And these cameras, they can help enable the department to better defend their officers if the officers did not use excessive force. So in my opinion, if you have the money, I believe it is a good thing. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Gray. Who do you have next, Ms. Clerk?
Our next speaker is Jamie Salas.
All right, Mr. Silas, state your name and address for the record, and you got 5 minutes.
Jamie Salas, Waterloo, Iowa, 111 Sherman Avenue. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, my first concern, first of all, I echo the sentiments of Ms. Latanya. Not only will it hold the officers accountable, but it also holds us as citizens accountable. There have been numerous complaints to the city and lawsuits to the city in the past that caused a financial burden on the city of Waterloo. These cameras and this new system, I have done some investigating on it myself, watched videos, did research. It does free up those lawsuits that may be filed against the city. Not only that, it also frees up finances with officers taking time to write reports. It takes them off the street. They have to be actually in the department writing those reports. With this new system, with my research, it shows that there's dictation done during those stops and recording, so that it doesn't require those officers to be off of the street as long. It just allows them to be at other places handling other things. With the history of police relations as it relates to our community, I believe, again, accountability on both sides will be addressed, whether it be the officers in the wrong or the citizen in the wrong. It allows a clear view and a clear picture. The other capability that I found attractive with this system is that when the tasers are deployed or out of their holsters, it sends a message to the department so that their supervisors can watch live. I believe that is important, because if those officers are acting in a situation, and also with their weapon, with their guns, if the officers are acting outside of a department policy, then they can be contacted immediately by the supervising officers. That does allow more time and more resources for de-escalation and different things of such. So I believe that with the financial piece, it is going to cost some money. However, in the long run, I believe it will save the city money as well. And I believe lives are that much more important than the finances that have to be spent on these devices. So that's my take, and I definitely appreciate the time there.
Thank you, Mr. Salas. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this particular item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
My name is Brent Richmond. I live at 713 Ricker in Waterloo, and I am in support of the Vimeo package that is being discussed here for many of the same reasons as you heard from Mr. Salas and Ms. Graves. The dictation component will free up the officers' time and have them on the street more, and they'll be able to do the editing better for better and clearer report writing. There's training modules that are involved in it, and it's something that I think will enhance professionalism and be able to allow the officers to gain more training as far as treating people with dignity and respect. And I think that's one of the goals of the department and goals for the city, to have their officers act in such a manner. So I think that it's important that this proposal be considered. Yes, it's a lot of money, and hopefully it can be, the funds can be taken from something that's not taxpayer based, whether it be the red light cameras or grants or whatever. But I think it's important to make that investment in the department. You're not only making the investment in the department, you're making the investment for the city and the citizens. And that's my take on it.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item?
Yes, you're up, Mayor.
Yes, sir. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Kevin McCullough. My address is 2420 Kaiser Court, Waterloo, Iowa. And again, I'm just going to piggyback on the previous speakers that sure, this is a very expensive set of equipment, but we cannot put a price on the safety of our police officers. We cannot put a price on the safety of our citizens and exactly what's happening. During the past, the city of Waterloo has paid out numerous settlements in police misconduct trials. And I believe over the time, of course, you're talking about $4 million over 10 years. I mean, if you go back, it's almost like we're going to save money as a city so that we don't have to deal with those sort of things. In the past, during these situations, former police chief was noted to call these honest mistakes. And I think I'm in agreement with most of the citizens here, or victims, or even police officers who don't agree with those misconduct actions that happen, that these are not honest mistakes. And we want to give transparency through the police department and every other city government that we have. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Going a second time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and file comments.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Hearing closed. Mr. Amos.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving a 10-year agreement with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for body in-car cameras, tasers, and digital evidence management in the amount of $4,077,656.96 paid over the contract period, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Council questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bozen.
I have a few questions, and first of all, I'd like to compliment all of the public speakers and the amount of research that they've done. I mean, and looking into the items that they addressed, and I feel the same way that they do. this is a very expensive program. And I'm concerned about our ability to pay for this program over the 10-year period. I'm concerned of the fact that we're going to use traffic camera money to do this, but the traffic cameras, as I said in the past, are only guaranteed till the next legislative cycle, whether they ban automated traffic enforcement cameras or they tax them. And I'm afraid that that could happen down the road, and then the taxpayers are going to be saddled with how to pay for this program. I believe we'd be the only municipality in the state of Iowa that would be using this entire Axum program compared to the WatchGuard program that I believe over 130 departments in the state of Iowa use WatchGuard, including Blackhawk County and Cedar Falls, I believe, for half the price. And I know it doesn't come with all of the bells and whistles that the Axum program does, but I do have a couple of questions for either Major Leibold or Chief Fitzgerald. And because I believe we purchased over 100 tasers in the past 3 to 4 years at a cost of $1,100 to $1,500 a taser. Will Axum, are they giving us any credit for those tasers? Because the contract clearly states they're just going to return them to them and they're going to destroy them.
Yeah, I think those tasers are all outside of warranty at this point. I do not believe we are getting any credit, but I'll be quite clear. This has not been my project from the beginning, so I am not up to speed in all the details. Chief Fitzgerald is having some technical difficulties trying to get into the meeting again. He got kicked out. So I believe there's no credit for return.
Because we've spent close to $150,000 in the last 3 to 4 years on taser purchases. That if we purchased 100 tasers, between $1,100 and $1,500 a taser.
Yeah, I don't believe we've purchased 100 over the last 3 years. It might be over the last 6.
Okay.
But to be quite honest, my taser's still out there. I
have the printouts, but my next question is the number of units that we're purchasing, and it's spec'd in the contract for 135. Tasers, 135 body cameras. And the issue I have with that is, do we need 135 of them? I know we need some spares, but do we need to have body cameras for the command staff? Do we need to have tasers for the command staff? Can we reduce these numbers in this contract for cost savings?
Well, the command staff traditionally goes out. I wear my body camera every day. I wear my taser every day. So that's kind of an issue. Special events, Irish Fest, my Waterloo Days, those kind of things are important for us to have it as well. We recently had a lieutenant out on a call where his body camera video was critical. So I think we were the first, in my opinion, in the state to go department-wide with issue from chief down to new officer, and I think it's important to stay that way. I think everybody should have them. There's things that happen in the building. I use mine in the station probably as frequently as I use it out.
But I was in the station today, Major Leibold, and anyone dressed in civilian clothes wasn't carrying a body camera with them.
Well, you talking about the investigators?
I'm talking about, I was on the second floor. I'm talking about command staff and training and no disrespect, but I just didn't notice anybody carrying a body camera.
Yeah, their body cameras are primarily, granted, not used every day. They're a backup, they're a reserve, they're a spare. Because when you say 135, remember we also have reserve officers that will use the same equipment.
Okay. So, and then, like I say, I'm just concerned with our ability to pay for this $4 million project, and I like it. I know WatchGuard has a similar product for in the neighborhood of $2 million less. I know we would have to purchase tasers apart from that, and I guess the tasers would come through Axum because since they own Taser. But even if we purchased the Gen 7 tasers at $2,500 a piece, and we bought them twice in the 10 years, we'd be spending about $500,000 or $600,000, and we wouldn't be in that neighborhood of $1 million like it's quoted in here. So those are the only questions I have right now, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bozeman.
Mr. Mayor?
This is Julie.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick questions. Do you know, Major Leibold, if this WatchGuard program that Mr. Bozeman referenced, if that was also considered?
Yes, it was. The chief's on. I see him online. I'm going to see if he can answer.
Yeah. I just was able to get in. Yes. WatchGuard was looked at, LG was looked at, Axon. We looked at several different vendors, and the numerical value of the overall contract that's in the packet is much closer than you think. Axon minus, you look at the Axon figure, Axon's figure includes the tasers. The figures that the other vendors have more closely resemble the actual price of the Axon contract when you factor in we'd have to buy tasers from another vendor. So it is closer than what was represented. I just caught the tail end of that. But we did our due diligence. We looked at the competitors, and the consensus was Axon. Did I miss anything else? I know Mr. Boson had a primary concern. That was his secondary concern. I don't know what the primary was. I missed it.
If Mrs. June, are you done?
I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
In our contract with Axon, if the state does prohibit our use of the red light cameras, if we have a legitimate reason that we can no longer afford this, do we have an exit clause in that contract?
We do. Marty Peterson worked with Axon for an out. Marty did a 5-year out on the contract, but I'd like to not lose sight of the fact that no matter maintaining
You're cutting out again, Chief. So there is an exit clause there at
Mr.
5
Pete.
years.
Mr. Peterson, are you on?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Can you talk about the 5 years?
Sure. This is Marty Peterson from the legal department. Paragraph 17.2, I discussed some changes with Axon, and they were open to those changes. Essentially, I added that if sufficient funds are not appropriated annually, we can terminate the agreement. And also, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in the agreement, the appendices or the quote, we can, without cause, terminate the agreement after 60 months. And so it doesn't reference anything other than us doing it without cause. So that would include, a change in the legislative attitude towards our automatic traffic enforcement program.
Right. And I don't know if Major Leibold is giving us the hand or he has something to contribute to this part of the conversation.
Yes, I do. I got a text while you guys were talking that Taser did give us almost $28,000 in credit for turning in our old equipment. So I just wanted to get that out there to answer Mr. Boson's question.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. Sharni, can I ask?
Mrs. Jewin, are you finished?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Before Mr. Boson goes a second time, is there anyone else with questions?
I have one.
Mrs. Klein.
Well, here's my thing. I'm just so uncertain about the funding source for this, because we all know that the legislature has frowned upon cameras, and we're just not solid on concrete with our funding source. And that worries me. And since my ride along with the police, which I'm so grateful for, I think it's changed me forever. I realized that what I saw that night was that they have problems with their computers and not with their cameras. I didn't hear any complaints from anyone about cameras, but I heard a lot about the computer system. And frankly, this is a very pricey package when I think we could do almost the same for less, the way the county is and the way our neighbor is. And even Evansdale doesn't use this program. And also, frankly, I would like it, I'm just going to say it, I would like it to come from a chief who has long range plans for being in the city. That's the truth of it. I think you have to have skin in the game when you propose a $4 million program, and that's my opinion.
Yeah, Mrs. Klein, the only thing I'll say to that portion is the plans and programs that are put in place have been backed by council ordinance. So whether it's Chief Fitzgerald or whether it is a different chief, the council has plans that have the plans that are put in place will be here regardless, because the changes have been backed up with council ordinance. So if this were $4 million to go to Chief Fitzgerald, that's different. We're talking about the officers that will be here day to day that you had the opportunity to do the ride on along. Those officers that are out here trying to engage the community on. So this is bigger than one person. This is
let me add.
Can I finish?
Oh, yes.
Because this is talking about the way that we are doing policing. There is incredible accountability that goes along with this system. Those folks that are out here working every day know that sometimes there's some challenges. So if it's Evansdale or if it's another city, I'm not so much caught on that particular piece of it, because it's okay to be first, and we're first in a number of areas. What I'm concerned about is our accountability, our camera system, our tracking system, and the overall ordinances that we put in place for smart policing and safety. That's my concern. So this is bigger than one chief.
I understand what you're saying, Mayor, and I mean no insult. The chief knows how very much I respect and admire him. However, I do think when you're going to propose a $4 million package, it's important to really be present and to have some commitment to the community in which you're presenting it to. That's my personal opinion. I mean no harm to anyone.
And my personal opinion, I take exception to that piece of it, because there are sworn officers here that have taken an oath to the city, and you know we have a chief here right now. So I do personally, just like you gave your personal opinion, take some exception, because this is about life safety issues. This is about the men and women that you talked about, that you went out on that stop with, and you saw all the stuff that they go through on a daily basis, right? And so this is about the betterment of the way that we are able to do enforcement. So I'm hoping that the conversation stays on life safety in that range. But
I agree, sir. And I may have spoken in an awkward way, just to say, I think it's important to know your community, to be immersed in it and to know it.
So I'll also say that at 2:00 in the morning, seeing somebody standing out there amongst our citizens trying to get to know, to moving over to other citizens that may think differently about what was happening in. So you got folks that are on here, and there's a level of participation that we've never had since I've been mayor or since I've been on council. We have citizens on this call right now. How many times have you seen these folks? You got the representatives from the NAACP, representatives from the advisory board. You got representatives from all around this community that are saying that they appreciate this move. Now, I've been here a lot. We've never had that before. So I think there's a level of engagement and that we're seeing that we haven't seen before. Whether or not council decides to support this money for this, that's another story. But we're seeing engagement like we haven't seen in a long time. Who else has any questions germane to this discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, actually, Ryder, and then we'll come to you, Chief.
So I understand that this comes with a hefty price tag. I get that, and that has weighed on me on this decision, because it's public money, and those are tough decisions. It's not an unlimited account that we can just charge whatever we want. But I also know that we have seen things in this nation. We saw things last summer, and we have heard that people want to feel part of our community. They feel that they want the police, who are there to protect us all,
are held accountable when a few people make bad decisions, regardless of what uniform they wear. And I understand that the legislature might make decisions that are out of our hands, but that is unfortunately just sort of the level of federated government that we have. And before us sits a plan that has been vetted by our police chief, by our police department, that we have heard the public say that, yes, this is an accountability tool, not just for the police, but also for citizens, so that we can get the whole story if something unfortunately tragic happens in our community, which I absolutely hope that it does not. So while the numbers can seem large and maybe be tough to swallow, I think in the long run, the peace of mind, the accountability, and the transparency will be beneficial for Waterloo long after any of us are here or not in this great city. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, a few things. First of all, I have some issues with the fact that we're picking the most expensive one, and don't the other ones basically do the same thing? And I don't think anybody is doubting that if we got what was it, WatchGuard, if I remember the name correctly, that's not going to do the same. Basically, on these different, excuse me, I just lost my, okay, on these different devices that are being purchased here. And I guess I still don't understand why we have to have as many as what are being requested to be purchased here. I don't know why we have to have that amount. Why can't we get along with less? And third thing is that I mean, we're not in a very good time nationwide, let alone statewide, let alone citywide, as far as knowing what's going to happen next, what our budgets are, given what's happened in the last year. And to me, this is maybe not the right time to do this in total, like what we're talking about, and maybe doing a contract for one of the ones that have an offering at a definite lower price tag than what we got here. And the final thing is that I haven't heard, and I do want to hear from our chief financial officer. I want to see if this was approved, what the effect would be on our city budget, not only short term, but also long term, because this is a 10-year agreement. And I understand what City Attorney Peterson said as well. And again, do we know exactly where those dollars are coming from? And then also for the chief financial officer, is this amount above? And if so, how much above the normal annual budgeted amount for such equipment?
All right, thank you. Let's go to Chief Fitzgerald. There were a number of comments. And then after, so does this do the same thing as WatchGuard? Is it the same system? Is this one more advanced? It was also mentioned that part of the problem in the police cars had to do with the computer system in there. Does this make any type of impact? How does this help? How does this help policing overall in our officers?
We're talking about the purchase of the in-car camera video equipment and our capability able to. Mr. Ryder put it so eloquently to tell the story that, God forbid, something go wrong. We have the technology to talk about and to demonstrate change the setup of a police MDT inside the car or the MDT, which our problem is hardware inside of the car. And what we're proposing is changing the video hardware portion of it to a more stable platform, a platform that is.
Mr. Mayor, the chief is cutting out big time.
Right. Chief, can you,
You guys hear me better now?
yeah, now we can.
And out again.
The car. If you're talking about
Hey, Chief, your phone, it's continuing to go in and out. We can't hear you at all now. Why don't we move to CFO Weidner really quickly, and then hopefully we can get the chief back in a few minutes. But Mrs. Weidner, is this more than the regular cost? One, do we expend dollars every year for the stuff that we're talking about today? And then I think we know this is the cost is more. And then how can we potentially pay for this?
Michelle Weidner, Chief Financial Officer. I mean, I believe there are probably some parts we pay for annually. I don't have those numbers. You've heard the presentation about the operating budget and the capital improvements program. There are parts of this that could be incorporated into the capital improvements program. That's up to council. I do believe, and the police chief hasn't discussed it tonight, but I believe he's planning to have new additional cameras and hoping that there will be enough revenue to pay for it from there. And that, you know, those are just the options. So that's just up to what council and mayor prioritizes in the budget.
So could be operating, could be CIP, could be traffic camera revenue. So a couple different ways, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey.
Again, my question was, what's this going to do to our budgets, both in the short term and the long term, especially given the fact that we're choosing the highest of the three that have been presented to the council, with WatchGuard, I think, being able to provide a similar kind of service, if I heard everything correctly.
Major, is WatchGuard doing also in-car data, the ability to go back and review? Are they offering the same product?
Yeah. Yes. No, they are not. They are short a couple pieces. WatchGuard, we'd have to buy Axon tasers separately. To be honest, Axon is the top of the line in the game. If you start looking around at major cities, Axon is what they do. I know Chattanooga has them. A friend of mine works down there. Axon is kind of the primary name and probably the largest player in the game right now because of their in-car, their body worn, and their taser, the holsters, just everything. They're kind of a one-stop shop. WatchGuard is not a one-stop shop. Obviously, we'd have to buy tasers from Axon. Their camera product is still very good. It's just not as full or robust as the taser product.
Anyone else before we go to Mr. Bozen?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Yeah, you know, I've been sitting here listening to all of the comments and everything. And one of the things for me is we're talking about public safety here. You know, I've served on the Waterloo Human Rights Commission, been involved with a few other things as far as with the Black Hawk County Sheriff. And one of the things that for me, this is so important from a standpoint of for the police department to make sure that the officers are held accountable. But I also know that there have been instances, and I'm sure there are other people that can corroborate this, where citizens have made false accusations. And with this system, we should be able to address those false accusations. I'm in full support of this. As far as the chief goes, for me, that police chief's position is a job. That's what it is. It's a job. And if someone is looking to improve their lot in life, I don't have a problem with them doing that. I understand, the loyalty and all of those things. But for me, everyone needs to understand that that police chief is working at the whim of the mayor. Anything could happen. And the bottom line is I don't blame the chief at all for doing what he's doing. If he's trying to further himself in life, then we should not be the ones who are saying anything or condemning him in any way, shape, or form. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. Anyone before Mr. Bozen? Mr. Bozen?
Thank you, sir. Most of these questions can probably be answered by Major Leibold, since the chief's having trouble getting in and out of here. Is there a reason sir, that we didn't have the opportunity to field test this product? I mean, if we were going to invest $4.3 million into something, would we even have the opportunity with Axon to have some of their equipment up here and field test it?
Yeah, the chief is very familiar with the product.
I know he is.
I've talked to people throughout the country about it. I mean, this isn't a new product. It's been around for a long time, and their back end is quite robust. So we're comfortable without having. It's hard to bring in one camera and test it because you need back end, you need support, you need download.
So what you're saying is no.
No, we have not done like a field test. No.
Okay. So my next question would be is with this the ability when the gun is drawn from the holster to activate body cameras around you and notify your supervisor, which I don't see the supervisor intervening at that point in time. Is that going to necessitate new holsters?
It actually comes with holsters. The equipment is part of it.
I know it does for the tasers. It wasn't listed on the.
It's part of the package.
Okay, very, very good. And those are my two questions. Would be the field testing and like I say, if we're going to have hidden. Oh yeah, the installation of the cameras in the cars and the equipment in the cars, like an extra charger for your body camera and the in-car video. Who does the installation of those?
I would believe our shop could, but I do not know. Maybe electronic engineering. It's a lot smaller footprint than we currently have, so it's a simpler install, and it should be less problematic.
That'd be an added cost, so that's not in this quote.
Again, I don't know if Taser quoted install or not. I do not know.
I believe they quoted showing how to install it.
Yeah.
I didn't see a quote on installing for X amount of cars in the quote.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrison.
Yeah, once again, first of all, for Major Leibold, when an officer exits their car, the body camera automatically turns on. Is that correct?
Yeah, and to speak to Mr. Bose's point about a supervisor intervening, yeah, they're probably not going to intervene right away, but if that officer becomes unresponsive, it gives us the opportunity to reach out and see where they're at, what's going on. It does provide stuff. But yes, these cameras have a lot of triggers. Get out of the car, it comes on. Get around other cameras that are on, it'll come on. So yeah, there are triggers that can be installed.
Is there, as a follow-up, those can't be manually shut off then by the officer?
Well, yes, I believe the cameras can always be manually turned off. I mean, if you went to the restroom or something to that regard, you'd want to be able to shut the camera off. So I believe there's always a manual override on the camera, so it can be shut off, but we do address that pretty critically in policy.
But during an incident or a stop, they can't be shut off.
Well, per policy, they can't be shut off while they're taking police action.
And that's all the way from the beginning of it to the end of the stop?
From the contact with the citizen.
Okay. Thanks. And then, Mr. Mayor, again, I would like to hear from Chief Financial Officer the effect of this $4.1 million investment, both short term, what it would do to our budget, and long term, being that it's a 10-year contract.
This is Michelle Weidner, Chief Financial Officer. I mean, I guess I would say it's going to add the $400,000 of cost every year, particularly if we do it from operating money, which the AT camera revenue is operating money. Or if it can, and I don't know that it can today, but if a portion of it could fit into the existing capital improvements program, then we may not have that impact of the 400,000 per year. But and there may be possibly savings if it prevents lawsuits or something. That's a pretty difficult to measure right now. So I really don't think I can give you a more precise answer than that.
And just as a follow-up, Michelle, and that would be versus if it's 400,000, just hypothetically, added to our budget, is that over and above what we annually are paying for these same items?
I don't think the full amount is, but most of it is, because this is a whole new, different program than what we use today. So police would have to tell us if there are things that they're paying for today that they would no longer be paying for. Other than, obviously, we have bought tasers, we have bought body cameras. We have those things that in the past we have purchased through the CIP program. So they've been incorporated into bond issues primarily. There is probably some cost in their operating budget for ammunition or things like that I think I'm guessing it's relatively minor, but that comparison we would have to have them help us with.
So we will see a line item addressing this 10-year contract. We will see that in this year's budget that we're going to be approving.
Well, that's interesting, as the police have not submitted it yet. No, they were. So we don't have it yet. I guess that's the best I can say.
And so that brings me, do we have to approve this now, or can we wait?
What do you want to wait on so I can understand?
To see what the effect it has on our budget and the proposals for budget.
So let me ask. So let me ask you a question. So do we spend every year already money for this type of equipment? Major?
Yes, we do buy tasers, taser cartridges. We have to replace body cameras. Our current body cameras, the body cameras we bought in, I want to say 2015, 2016, are all outdated. They're going to have to be replaced anyway. It's just a matter of where we go. Think 10 years ago, a cell phone, and then 5 years after that, a cell phone. The technology in body cameras is changing so rapidly that we're going to have to upgrade completely to keep up. It's just, ours are old. They were what we could afford at the time. They were new at the time, new technology, and it has continued to evolve to the point where it'll turn on when you get out of the car. It'll turn on when it hears a loud noise. It'll broadcast back to the station. They just keep getting more robust and more powerful. I did get a text from somebody that did tell me installation is included on the in-car cameras. So that should go to your question, Mr. Bozen. I'm sorry I didn't know that off the top of my head, but like I said, I'm kind of late to this Axon project. So.
And then Mr. Major, do you random discussion with officers about these tasers? Do you have any of those, or any focus groups with the officers?
Well, the actual taser we've carried for years. So they're well aware of taser. They're well aware of how body cameras work. Like I said, a field test would be difficult because when we went with our current product, We went with it because of the back end, because of the server and the storage. You've got to have how it gets into the system, how the evidence is cataloged, how it's kept is critical. And TASER has a cloud-based storage system that will free up space and provide us an easier product for transparency and a variety of things. And it'll be a reliable product. Our current product, the existing ones, sometimes the batteries don't last 8 hours and we work 8, 10, 12-hour shifts. So you'll see all the time guys getting the radio saying, hey, my camera battery's dead. I mean, this would take that away.
Right. And then the question about waiting. I mean, is it, so we would be going up to a maximum of $400,000. So if we're spending 50,000, 100,000, it would be the difference between those two, the 150 or the 400, whatever we spend, correct?
Are you talking what we currently spend or what we'd have to spend just to keep our current system running?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, we probably spend, I'm going to ballpark maybe 50 to 100,000 a year between tasers, body cameras, and in-car cameras. I'm ballparking. That obviously would be gone. We wouldn't need that anymore. This program would cover that.
And does it offer a training component?
Yes, it does.
Right. So,
Just an FYI, I'm sorry, so just an FYI that they did have $100,000 in their CIP that's been taken out, 50,000 for tasers, and then they had an additional monies for in-car radios and body cameras. So what Major Liable did say is it's $100,000 basically a year in CIP that they're bonding for to replace some of this equipment.
I don't think it's been every year though.
Okay, but it's 100 this year and it's gone.
I think they made a request. Yes.
Yes, they did, and it's not in there now. So if we do vote this down, we're going to have to figure out a way to fund to get the equipment that they need.
Correct.
Thank you.
And so just last question before we bring this to a vote. The equipment you currently have is outdated and hard to work with, correct? Or no?
It is.
All right. All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
isn't it true though that what we're talking about are dollars that will come out of fiscal year 2022's both operational and CIP budget? Isn't that true?
Sweetener.
That's a question for the police department. I don't know the timing.
Mr. Libo.
Well, we'd like to start as soon as we can. Obviously, yes, you're probably, by the time we get everything spun up and get all the equipment ordered and in and installed, you're probably pushing FY22, yes.
So again, Mr. Mayor, what I'm saying is, why can't we wait on approving this until we see what it does to the police budget and to our overall city budget?
Add 300,000.
And we don't know for sure where that's coming from.
It could come from ATE revenue. It could come from CIP, and it could come from operations.
And again, Mr. Mayor, I hate to take up all this time, but the presentation during work session from our chief financial officer included that increase. Does that increase that she was talking about include this additional 300,000?
Not right now.
Pardon?
If you're not in support of it, then there's no reason even to continue this. So there's 3 sources that it can possibly come from. We've been talking about this for about a month and a half or 2. So if you don't agree with this, if there's not a table or whatever to push it back, then I think we need to go ahead and have a vote. It's going to take a couple months to even get this thing ready to go and in support and here by 22. So
Well, then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until we see how this additional 300,000 fits in viably and feasibly to our upcoming budget negotiations. I would like to make that motion to postpone.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made with the second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greider?
how long are we talking? Are we talking till our next meeting? Are we talking until our March 25th special meeting? Like, what time frame are we talking about to get these numbers back?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey?
I'd just like to see it be postponed till at least March 15th, when we've had time to digest what the upcoming budget proposals are going to be, especially coming from your budget proposal, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? Mr. Libo, do you have anything to add before we move forward for a vote?
No, but we do need to move forward on something rather quickly. Just listening to the community, the officers have the same feeling. They want equipment that works. They want equipment that's reliable. They want equipment that they can count on. And quite honestly, we owe them that.
So they need to get some equipment. So do we say, so you want to know how this fits into next year's budget?
That's the reason for the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
So if we, if they put the proposal together on ways to pay for this, does it have to be the 15th?
Well, no, Mr. Mayor, I'm just saying we can postpone it till March 15th. I mean, if there's information that the chief financial officer in communication with you and the police department see where it's going to be viable and feasible and not going to be an issue that's going to be one of rancor coming into the budget discussions and approval of a budget, I have no problem with it coming before the council earlier than that, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bozen.
Thank you, sir. I do believe in our discussions earlier that this program was hopefully to be funded through ATE on a 60-40 split, 60% going to property tax relief, 40% funding this program. And I personally believe if we went that route, anything over and above what we owe the Axon bill should go back into property tax relief. But I would think that the additional funding for this, for the bond, for the CIP, for operating revenue or expenses or other revenue, was only going to be considered if we lost our ATE money. I mean, right off the bat, our plan was to use ATE. I hope I'm correct in that.
That was from the last couple of months,
but I would think that we would not need to be looking at other funding sources unless ATE dried up, state took it out, or they took a portion of it and we didn't have the money to pay for it. And then we'd have to go back to CIP. We'd have to go back to taking it out of their operating expenses or some other form of revenue. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So any other discussion? All right, to postpone again till the PD comes back and tell us ATE again, like they've been telling us.
Mr. Mayor, that's a misread of my motion to postpone. I just want to have those questions answered that I brought forward. It's not what you just said, Mr. Mayor. It's a motion to postpone until March 15th.
Mr. Bozen also said it too, about ATE dollars.
Maybe.
All right, so we have a motion to vote to come back by March 15th for the postponement. Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce? No. Mr. Greider? No. Mrs. Jewin?
No.
Mr. Bozen,
No.
Mr. Amos,
No.
and Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Foyce, Yes. Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
No.
and Mrs. Klein.
No.
All right, thank you. Could someone take number 5, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Foyce.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for a request by the City of Waterloo to vacate approximately 1.70 acres of excess right-of-way with the retention of a utility easement and conveying excess right-of-way to MT Company LLC for property located south of 3470 West Airline Highway.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone online that wants to talk about a utility easement off of Airline Highway? Do we have any comments on file?
No comments on file.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive the recommendation of approval of the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance approving a request by the City of Waterloo to vacate approximately 1.70 acres of excess right-of-way with the retention easement located south of 3470 West Airline Highway.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Council, questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
and Mr. Foyce. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce, Yes. Mr. Greider.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to consider and pass for the second and third times and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce, Yes. Mr. Greider,
Yes.
and Mrs. Jewin.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a property exchange agreement with MT Corp LLC to convey approximately 1.70 acres of city-owned right-of-way and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce, Yes. Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
and Mr. Bozen.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Council. Can we do 6, 7, and 8, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Klein?
number 6 is a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with Elevate Housing Foundation, aka CCBHC, to provide embedded social workers to the Waterloo Police Department. Number 7 is a resolution approving the request by Kasem Mustadanagic, I don't know how to pronounce that name, to name a private street, Aiden Way, generally located south of 4245 West 4th Street. And number 8 is a resolution approving supplemental agreement number 1 to a professional services agreement originally executed March 11th, 2020, with Willett Hoffman and Associates, Inc., in the amount of $5,500 in conjunction with the downtown traffic fiber optic and camera project, and authorizing the mayor to execute said documents.
Second.
Motion has been made with the second. Questions, council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greider.
I would just like to say on 6, it's not a question, but I really applaud the police department and Elevate Housing Foundation for working together on this. We know that police departments across the country, including ours, are often unwillingly frontline mental health services. And so the ability to provide trained people to go along with our officers to help out in those situations so they don't escalate in unfortunate ways is a really bold and a really smart move. And I just want to applaud everyone involved in this for helping make Waterloo safer and making sure that we're addressing challenges as they come up in the appropriate way.
All right, thank you, Mr. Greider.
Mayor Hart,
we
did have one registered speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
Latanya Graves for item number 6.
Mrs. Graves, for item number 6, state your name and address for the record, and sorry about that.
That's okay. Latanya Graves, 607 East Donald Street, Waterloo. And I just wanted to say, I believe having these mental health interventionists is long overdue, especially with the pandemic. And the positions are so needed now more than ever. And I'm just ecstatic that they will have individuals there that can actually identify when a person is having a mental health crisis. So I'm just thankful for the collaboration.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Graves. Is there anyone else like to make comments in cyberspace? Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, first of all, I just want people to know that, and many of you probably do, that I'm a former child abuse investigator or social worker, however you want to refer to that, of 31 years with the Iowa Department of Human Services, having retired from that position in 2010. And I've worked with the police department. They've worked with me during my tenure as that. And so when I saw this, I was rather happy, I guess would be the word, because I believe that this should have been something that had taken place. Matter of fact, it did take place when we had child abuse investigations that were joint investigations. But I requested, Mr. Mayor, to have a work session on this. And I was denied that. And I have no idea why something as important as this would be denied a work session, even when that work session could take place the same day as we have a vote. That was very disappointing and discouraging to have that denied of an elected official on an issue of this importance. And I don't oppose number 6, but I certainly have questions that could have been answered in a work session, which now I'm going to spend time asking regarding number 6. Number 1 is why was Elevate Housing Foundation chosen and not another agency? What went into that decision to pick Elevate Housing and say, as an example, why didn't DHS and their family-centered and investigative workers get involved? Number 2, under the purpose part of this, could somebody please explain what those particulars involve, like joint supervision? How is joint supervision between the police department and the Elevate program? How does that work? Who's going to have the final say in whatever there? And in that same purpose thing, what does the delivery or deliver services under the same requirements as the CCBHC to the extent billable to the third party reimbursement. What does that mean? And how do you bill people that are being approached involuntarily? People aren't invited there, or their citizens aren't requesting that involvement. And also in that same paragraph, I'd like the last sentence explained. The third thing is scope of services. And in the second paragraph, could that please get explained? And are CIT officers law enforcement or not? Fourth, under the grievance section, that seems to me in need of an explanation. In the care coordination paragraph, I would ask that that be explained. And then on the top of page 3 paragraph, doesn't that put the social worker involved in sort of a catch-22 where they're saying we're here to help, but we may have to testify against you? And what if the social worker involved doesn't agree with what the DCO officer did? That I think needs to be answered. Under data collection and responding, what are the Waterloo Police Department's current and to me this is very important, what are the Waterloo Police Department's current stats on the number of calls for service, or what have they been in the last 3 to 5 years maybe, that deal with mental health, violent versus nonviolent, substance abuse related service calls, where there's no charge or there's not any charge or filed, or there's any violence involved. What are the statistics on domestic calls that don't involve violence, or on neighborhood or neighbor conflicts? And then the final thing is an explanation of the payment section, because that seemed murky to me as well. And one of the things I noted in there was the phrase that the embedded social worker will be wearing body armor. And I'm wondering who pays for the body armor, where does it come from, and to me, if I was going into a home when I was working as a child protective investigator and I was in a joint investigation with the police and I had body armor on, are they going to see me there as a social worker providing family-centered protective services, or as a police officer? So as you can see, Mr. Mayor, I'm not opposed to this, but I have so many questions, and the benefit of a work session would have been great, but I was denied that.
So even if we had a work session, you had about 25 questions that you had for the last couple of weeks that you could have asked directly, and you didn't.
I had it for the last week.
Right, because we give the council agenda out earlier than we normally do. Mr. Major Libo, a number of questions, Elevate being selected, and joint supervision, and just some of those things. Give us a synopsis again of what's going on. And I'll talk a little bit about being thankful that the council and the CIT training and ordinance that we put in place. I was so thankful for council support. Mr. Major Libo.
Well, I tried to write those questions down, and I apologize, Mr. Morrissey, I didn't get them all. So if I miss one, you go ahead and bring it back. I was working those cases with you back in the day, and I'll be honest, things have changed a little bit, but I'll go through them. Elevate really kind of chose us. They're really the only 24/7 game in town. Department of Human Services won't come out for a substance abuse. Elevate's kind of a one-stop shop. They'll help with sexes, or with substance abuse, with domestic violence situations, just about any mental health crisis, suicidals. They're more than willing to get involved. So it was kind of a good partnership for the 24/7 aspect. as all of you are well aware, these things don't occur on Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They occur at midnight on Sunday. So they are a 24/7 operation. Joint supervision. Law enforcement, we're very familiar with working with other agencies, whether it be the fire department or DHS or the Waterloo schools. We supervise ours, they supervise theirs, and we always work together. I envision nothing different here, although this program is very fluid. It's new and we expect some growing pains, so we're ready for that. I can't really speak intelligently to the billing of the third party. My understanding of that would be as if someone chose to use Elevate for counseling after the fact, because they do provide that. They're as Bob Lincoln says, a clinic without walls. So they do have the ability to provide more in-depth assistance to people if they need it, if they work with the hospitals and those services. I'm guessing there's insurance billing or Medicare billing that they can do. Has nothing to do with us. We aren't going to bill for our service. Our service doesn't change. CIT officers. Yes, we have several law enforcement officers who've been trained as CITs. We've done 1 or 2 40-hour courses now. So we have several officers that are trained in critical incidents that will be partnered with these social workers to work together hand in hand. And hopefully their shared skill set will bring a better resolution to situations of crisis.
Major Leibold, could you, Major Leibold, just to interrupt just real quickly, can you say the words attached to the acronym?
I'm sorry, I don't have the CCBH whatever.
The CIT.
Oh, CIT, critical incident training or critical incident teams.
Okay, thanks.
For crisis intervention, it kind of goes back and forth.
Is that in the ordinance that council approved?
I don't have that in front of me either. I'm sorry.
There is a mention of crisis intervention training in the ordinance that council approved.
And we got grant funding to pay for that.
This is just following up on, that portion is just following up on what council approved, but keep going, Mr. Leibold.
I'm sorry. Testifying, yes, they could testify, but not in matters of health. They'd be protected by HIPAA there. We're talking more if they're in the car and an officer's out making a drunk driving arrest and the person attacks the officer. They're obviously going to witness that and see that. So yes, they could be called to court to testify in that situation, not in a situation of an armed suicidal or a mental health crisis where they're acting in a clinician's capacity. They would have HIPAA protection there, Health Insurance Privacy Protection Act. So they'd be protected there. Stats on calls for service. We don't have good numbers, to be quite honest. They weren't kept accurately up until about June of this year. So we're really kind of treading water here just to get a good feel for what the numbers are and what the hours would be best suited for this unit. But again, we're fluid in this. We're very capable of changing and adjusting on the fly. Elevate's proven that they're willing to do that. So we're comfortable there. Body armor. They're going to be provided body armor, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to wear it. There are situations where we're going to go to where they're probably going to want it. There's also, like Mr. Morrissey said, we'd go to child abuse investigations and neither of us would have it on. Now, you won't see that today. There won't be an officer in a child abuse investigation not wearing body armor because times have changed and quite honestly, we mandate it. But they won't have to. They'll wear it when they need it or when they feel they need it, whether that's a suicidal person who shot rounds out the door or a situation where firearms involved. It'll be kind of up to their decision as to when they put that on or not. And we're planning on having it clearly labeled as a social worker, something that clearly identifies them as not a police officer. So that's our plan there. And Mr. Morrissey, I apologize. That was all I wrote down as you talked. I didn't get the rest of them.
Well, thank you, Joe. One of the things was there's this section title. It's only 2 sentences or 2 lines, and it's called grievances. And I'll read it to you, Joe, if that's what you'd like me to do. Okay, it says CCBHC members receiving services from a DCO agency or Waterloo PD will have access to the CCBHC existing grievances or grievance procedures in addition to any grievance procedure available under the DCO agency. Could you explain that?
Yeah, it means they can file a complaint. If they don't like the service the police department provided, they can file a complaint. If they don't like the service Elevate provided, they can file a complaint with Elevate. Or they can file with either agency and we'll make sure it gets worked out on both sides.
So is that reciprocal too? That
meaning we could file a complaint?
Yeah, against Elevate.
if they wanted, if a person receiving treatment wanted to file on Elevate, yes, they would have a grievance procedure for that.
But would Waterloo PD also, if the officer involved, they could file a grievance against the Elevate social worker, it sounds like.
Well, I suppose they could, but I would guess that'd be highly unlikely. That would probably be something we'd handle internally. We've had good working relationships with Elevate. They're willing to come to the table and talk about our mutual interests. So I don't see that really as being what this is for. I think it's more for the client. If they don't like what the police did, they can complain. If they don't like what Elevate did, they can complain.
Well, Major Leibold, you know I respect you to the teeth, my eye teeth, and haven't been involved with situations which are very dangerous in the past. One of the concerns I got is how are you going to deal with those situations where there is a show of violence on the part of the people that you visit? There's kids in the home, or even if there aren't kids in the home, and somebody starts going for or assaulting an officer. What is expected of the social worker at that point in time?
I would say nothing's changed since you were doing it, Pat. I mean, we don't expect the social worker to jump in and grab an aspeton and go to work. I mean, that's not what we expect of them. I think we'd expect them. We're going to train them in what to watch for and probably disengage, maybe call for help on a radio if they can, do that kind of stuff. But for the most part, if it's a violent situation, obviously we're going to be very careful and handle that very carefully. They may not be brought in until we know we're safe. And once we get in and get safe, we may secure the area. You can't counsel somebody who's violent. You can't counsel. You got to get things settled down first. So I think we'll be very careful with them and work, through those issues. We do have CIT trained officers who are capable of and have not more than this weekend negotiated a guy to drop a knife who was trying to commit suicide. So we do have officers that are capable of doing it, and this will just be another tool in our toolbox.
Okay, and thank you very much, Joe. And one final thing, is there any way that you can get some statistics on like even the last 3 to 5 years or even the last year of those service calls that had to do with those different topics that I mentioned?
Well, like I said earlier, our data collection on anything involving mental health is a mess. We changed it in June, and it should be good moving forward, but even today I found a mistake in it. So I wouldn't trust data going back that far as mental health calls. Domestic calls, yes, I can get some of that. And maybe that's something, Pat, you could call me tomorrow and we can work offline on.
Okay, and one final thing, and that is what happens in those situations where you go out and there's absolutely nothing that the police need to be there for. What happens with the social worker at that time? Do they leave with the police officer or do they stay there with the family?
No, Elevate actually has the ability. So if we go out in a situation like that where Elevate's going to remain, they will bring another social worker in. So 2 of them will be there and the officer will leave. If it's a safe scenario where they're comfortable, the same thing would apply as if we took someone to Allen or to one of the crisis centers. We could drop them off. Elevate could do everything. The officer could go back on the street. And then when Elevate's ready, they call and say, hey, we're done. Come grab me. And they'll swing out and pick them up. So that's really, from a law enforcement standpoint, really a huge resource savings. We spend hours sitting at crisis centers and hospitals and different locations, even in family houses, trying to calm people down, where we can hopefully get in, get things secured, Elevate takes over, and we walk away. We've done it recently. I mean, they've been working with us since January. And yes, we've had growing pains, and it's not been perfect, but no new program is. We anticipate that, and we're ready to kind of move with it.
So this is a plus. That's not only involves a social worker and those kind of issues, but it also might end up freeing up some time so PD can go back to doing something other than providing social work services.
Yes, that is true.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
No problem, Morrison.
All right. So I just want to say before we vote on this, Major and Chief and our PD, you made commitments to see what we can do to try to help the community. We know that in our county jails, we know that in our prisons, there are a lot of people with mental health issues that need some advocacy and some type of support. So thinking outside of the box to be able to help this challenge I very much appreciate the crisis intervention training that you said you would do this summer at council's direction. I want to thank you for doing all those things. And this is just another incredible step towards more of a community policing model. It doesn't let people that commit crimes off the hook, but what it does try to do is help aid the families that may be in distress and may not need that type of enforcement. So thank you so much for thinking outside of the box. And just because they're not doing it next door doesn't mean that we can't do it. So I appreciate all your efforts. Madam Clerk,
Mr. Morrissey?
Pardon?
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce? Yes. Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Mr. Bozen? Mr. Bozen?
You're muted.
he gave the thumbs up, I think.
And Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right, is that all?
Yep.
All right, 9, 10, and 11.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
like to make a motion adopting the following resolutions. First, resolution approving supplemental agreement number 1 to a professional services agreement originally executed June 22nd, 2020 with Stanley Incorporated of Des Moines, Iowa in the amount of $8,384.11 to provide construction engineering services in conjunction with the Park Avenue Bicycle Signal Improvements Project and authorizing the mayor to execute said document. Next is a resolution approving supplemental agreement number 1 to professional services agreement with AECOM Technical Services Incorporated of Waterloo, Iowa, originally executed May 20th, 2019 in an amount not to exceed $129,800 in conjunction with the fiscal year 2021 Cedar River Marina and Recreational Enhancements Project, contract number 1011, and authorize the mayor to execute said document. And number 11, a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Ballard, King, and Associates of Highlands Ranch, Colorado, in an amount not to exceed $45,755 to complete an aquatics master plan for the city of Waterloo and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
The motion has been made with a couple seconds. Questions, 9, 10, and 11. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Mr. Foyce? Yes. Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
And Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Right, thank you. 12, 13, and 14, someone.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution approving a service agreement with Elements XS of Syracuse, Utah, in conjunction with a citywide service request and assessment and asset management software in the amount of $50,000 annually with integration costs of $75,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute said documents. Next is a resolution approving and accepting assignment and quit claim of sanitary sewer easement from Youngblood Construction Company located south and east of 777 Isle of Capri Boulevard and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. And then I believe I have another one.
Sorry.
And then there's a motion to adopt a resolution approving a development agreement with Elizabeth Blake LLC for approximate 3,960 square foot addition located at 2003 Westfield Avenue, American Pattern and Zanatti Armor, and 4 years of property tax rebates at 80% and 2 years at 75% for the additional value, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Questions about these three items?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, could Chris explain number 12?
Mr. Youngblood, could you talk about number 12?
Sure. And I've also have a couple of folks. I got Ben Wagner from engineering, and I think there's a couple department heads too that were involved quite extensively that can answer any other questions. But as the resolution states, this is a service request and asset management software. Currently, we are using several different methods. We have a few application or programs that we're using in different departments that may range from 10 to 20 years old. We're using some paper-based methods of tracking assets in other departments. So probably about 6 to 9 months ago, I know that I started to hear talk about some different departments that were looking at something. So kind of instead of having just one department kind of go off on their own, what we did was pulled together several different departments to start looking at some different products that we could maybe implement citywide, or when I say citywide, through 5, 6, 7 different departments. So what this will do is Elements will allow us to track assets throughout public works, like in fleet management, through streets and traffic. They'll be able to assist our building maintenance folks with tracking buildings and things that they do as far as maintenance within those buildings. With our waterworks utilities, water, sewer, and storm, tracking assets there, as well as workflows. And it will also be able to be set up in a way that the folks within those departments can be notified when maybe there's routine maintenance items that need to be done, or in certain cases doing or providing maybe a service maintenance item on one item is going to then direct them to move on to then look at another item. So it's really going to help to bring us forward more electronically and help us be more efficient in our daily activities. So if there's, I guess, specific questions on certain departments, I know that Ben is available, Randy as well, but that's kind of an overall view of what this will do for us.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
Yep.
All right. Other questions? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
and Mrs. Klein.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Could someone take 15, 16, and 17, please? I'll
Mr. Mayor.
take them. Okay, Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the following resolutions. First is a resolution approving a landlord consent to leasehold mortgage and estoppel certificate with Osprey Aviation LLC and Community Bank and Trust for the new hangar constructed at the Waterloo Regional Airport, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. Next is a resolution approving a proposed scope and budget addition contract with Vanderwall and Associates in the amount of $30,000, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute that document. And finally is a resolution approving a professional service agreement with Terracon Consultants Incorporated, Cedar Falls, Iowa, in the amount of $2,500 to complete a phase 1 environmental site assessment of the South Waterloo Business Park, U.S. Highway 20/Amesboro Avenue, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute that document.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Questions, council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Number 16. Right now, I believe that we're paying Vanderwall $72,000 a year. And I know that in the last 2 contracts, at least, members of the council have asked for Vanderwall and Associates to expand and include the north side of the river. And I don't know if that is what this is getting at. But when we asked it before, it appears that nothing has happened unless somebody is going to explain that something has been happening as a result of our request for the last several years. And I'm just wondering what this additional or this 42% increase in the monies given to Vanderwall are going to bring to us. And I note that this contract is $30,000 for only 5 months. It's not for an entire year, as I read the attachments.
All
And
right.
where do we go from there? At the end of 5 months or at the end of May? Is it stopped?
All right. You're okay. So I have Nola and Michelle both can chime in on this, but I think you represent Church Row, correct?
Correct.
So what we've done
Part
is
of it.
It borders along with Mrs. Klein, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So
And Mr. Foyce.
and Mr. Foyce and at large. So that's 5 council members. But so first part of this is we have had asked them to do an incredible amount of work beyond the scope. And that is to make sure that once we get through this pandemic, that we have plans in place that's going to move this community forward. With regards to one project called Central City, and it's the culmination from Church Row to the entire Walnut area, and trying to figure out how we can partner with Hawkeye, trying to figure out how we can partner with Waterloo Schools, Habitat, and a myriad of other entities to try to spur some type of additional quality of life, whether it is work to school programs, whether it is housing incentives. And so basically everything that you asked for, it expanded towards the north, and it also moved towards the south in the Church Row area also. We had a recent about a year and a half ago, I had a presentation from the county that talked about that the housing values within these areas, and some parts of the overall quality of life is challenged. So we're trying to create programs around that entire central city to see how we can build up our community, build up housing values. So not only does it move further to the north, it also moves to the south. And there will be, they also participated in helping to actually write grants for us. Right now, with all the federal dollars that are coming down the pike, we have a number of projects and key needs that they're putting in all the data and all the information to see which areas are going to be grant eligible. And that's just the beginning. We have done an incredible amount of work and asked them to do a lot of work to make sure we can put all these pieces together. So yes, some parts of this request does involve moving further to the north, but it also talks about moving to the south, which we know is part of the older communities housing stock with regards in our areas. The 800 or so thousand that we got from Blackhawk Gaming, they're highly involved in that. They were highly involved with working with John Deere and this partnership that we have with them, trying to figure out how John Deere can play a greater role in helping us to create a better community. So the list goes on and on. Some of the things they're still doing from the last presentation, but this is a lot of additional work. This is 2 to 3 meetings every week to try to change this community around. We got to do something to try to improve housing, to try to improve quality of life from the areas that I just mentioned. So no, Michelle, other than them taking a look at all the grants and tying this in, do you have anything else to add to that?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. Mayor, you touched on a lot of it. I just note from an administrative standpoint, so this is all hourly based work. So just because it might be a shorter time frame, that's just because they're spending more time here, but they'll only get paid for work that they do. There's no set amount. It's paid bill by bill as a complete task for us.
Council, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, as a follow-up, how will we as a council see the product for the price tag? Will we be made known? Will we be told about how the money that's being expended, taxpayer money being expended, how that money shows some kind of product at the end?
So, yeah, we'll have an update.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made with the second. I got a scolding for everyone on here, and that includes the audience. If you leave out your house and you don't wear gloves, you don't wear a hat, then you're going to be in trouble, and a mask. Then you are going to be in trouble. Stay warm. It's extremely cold out there. Watch for school children, but do the best you can to stay warm. But that motion has been made with the second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you, council.
Yep. Stay safe.